Dying to Live. I'm really, really excited to talk to you today about all of the work that you do in the dream space and beyond and your experience. So welcome.
Thank you. Likewise, I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Well, I think we should maybe just take a step back and, if you don't mind, giving everyone a little bit of your background and a little bit of knowledge about what it is that you do.
Sure. So first of all, I'm based on Vancouver Island. I'm a husband and father to a 2.5-year-old. And most of my career, I'm 41 years old. Most of my career I've spent in business, in social innovation and international development. But throughout the past 20 years of my career, I've had this deep passion for dream work. When I was in my early 20s, I was dating a woman whose mother turned out to be one of the world's foremost dream psychologists. She turned me on to this academic field that I didn't even know that existed. And over the last 20 years, I've just been hooked. I've just had a deep curiosity. I've read every book I could get my hands on. I've studied under teachers around the world under different lineage practices of dream work. And it's just been a deep, deep passion of mine. And up until a few years ago, it's stayed as a passion of mine. Then I had two interrelated issues that came up that kind of sent me on this trajectory of becoming a dream coach. And one of them was the fact that I used to be a triathlete. I used to be an athlete. And then a few years back, about 6 years ago, I had a problem with my knee. I had 5 surgeries, spent 9 months in bed rest. And at the end of that, I could never run again. And ultimately, that sent me into a bit of a spiral of depression. It sent me into questioning my identity. I was no longer a runner. I couldn't jump around on stages and bands. And there was a lot of grieving that went along with letting go of that part of my personality. And interestingly, dream work came to me a little while later, but dream work, I started realizing, hey, I can still run in my dreams. I can still incubate dreams where I could be lucid, where I could be aware I was dreaming and go running. And as soon as I started doing that, it was a real help in the process of my grieving. And it really just helped my own healing, my own moving on in life. And so that was one aspect of it. And yeah, and then the second aspect, as I was going through this depression and this kind of reinvention of myself, I started also doing work with plant medicines, with ayahuasca, and really kind of searching, asking myself some big questions. And after a few years of doing this work, I had a weekend of ceremonies where I just got 3 nights of downloads. Hey, that passion for dream work, it's time to start sharing that with others. And I didn't really know what to do with those downloads. I kind of thought, no, I'm in social innovation. That's my career. That's my identity. Till about 6 months later. And I had a dream where I was with my 11-year-old self, a boy who went through some trauma at that time. And I was able to be with this crying, scared little boy. I was able to hold him, to give him a hug, tell him he was loved, that everything was going to be okay, that nothing was his fault. And as we kind of held each other in embrace, we dissolved into each other. I woke up, and it was the most profound healing experience of my life. My perspective, my worldview literally changed the moment I woke up, and all the baggage I had been carrying for almost 30 years was all of a sudden let go. And that's when it kind of clicked for me. Hey, we have ceremony every night. We have the profound opportunity for healing in our dreams. I get it. I got to start sharing what I know, and knowing how we can incubate these types of experiences. I want to share that with as many people as I can.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't even know where to go with this. There's so many places to go, but the first thing that's happening for me right now is like a full body um awareness of the resonance of this topic and some parallels with my own life. I'm doing a lot of inner child work right now, and I've also had more lucid dreaming than not in the past few months, and I know that there's more to work with there. And right now, it's kind of this chaotic experience a little bit because I'm not really sure how to work with it. But I know that that's the next place where there are downloads and where there's information for me to gather. So, um, I how in this experience that you had, and you had, some ayahuasca experiences as well, which kind of helps with that, but how do you know how to navigate that space for yourself?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So what I often do is teach students that the first aspect of navigating these experiences is getting comfortable with your dreams. And so that usually requires starting up a bit of a dream practice. And a dream practice is a unique individualized practice for everyone. It often involves using a dream journal, collecting and keeping these dreams as soon as you wake up. It involves some intentionality of, asking your dream state, your higher self, your subconscious source, however you want to describe it to yourself, doesn't really matter. What do you want? What questions do you want to have? But do you want to ask your subconscious mind? What experiences do you want to have? How might you start then looking at those experiences, these dreams that you recall, and start to look at them for different meanings and different insights and different inspirations that may come to you. And after that, then we start getting usually into some lucid dreaming work. And that's a little bit more advanced. It takes a little bit more effort. Some people, maybe like you, are lucky in that lucid dreams spontaneously happen. But these are dreams, again, you're aware that you're dreaming within your dream, and you start to be able to carry out your intent in this space. And so as we get practiced with lucid dreaming, as we can stabilize our lucid dreams and keep them going longer, we can start to go deeper into some of these questions. Again, whether they be healing questions, inner child work questions, trauma questions, or whether they be creative questions. How might I grow my business? How might I have a deeper relationship with someone in my life? How might I support, the social innovation project that I'm working on? How might I carry out my life's purpose? We can start to ask the dream characters. We can ask the dream matrix that we're in. And surprisingly enough, we often get profound answers. So let me stop there and just see how that resonates.
Yeah, that's amazing. Can't believe I didn't connect these dots before as I was researching you and as we were speaking about kind of the parallels of a plant medicine ceremony and the intention setting, and the questions that you might ask ahead of time, navigating through that and integrating after, and how that might be quite parallel with dream work.
Yeah, completely. I actually run two separate lines of courses. One are for the generally curious who want to just get involved with their dreams, want to start remembering the 2 hours we experience every night in dream states, want to play with their dreams and explore. And the other is strictly for people who are working with plant medicines and who are used to working with intentions, are used to working in altered states. Regardless of who you are, if you're listening, it's very similar. Both ayahuasca, plant medicine, psychedelics, and your dreams are altered states of consciousness. And that's really important. When we go through our waking days, we start to see life in similar ways. We start to get into our habits, into our habitual ways of seeing life, people, triggers. We get into limiting beliefs, and dreams and altered states of consciousness give us new perspectives, new ways to look at our stories, ourselves, our situations. And what happens when we start to see these things from sometimes bizarre and fantastical dreams or visions that come in ceremony? Well, we start to have a little bit of distance from them. We're no longer subjectively in our situations. We have some objectivity. And that little bit of distance from them gives us a little bit of space where we can start to look at them a little bit differently. And with those different perspectives comes more choice. And with choice, we rather than reacting to triggers or situations that come up, we now have the ability to remember that we have choice in this situation. Rather than habitually reacting to a trigger, I can choose how I might respond to this. And so these altered states just give us a little bit of a different view on life that ultimately can be really growth oriented, can help us let go of some of these limiting beliefs and ultimately help us in our personal development.
Wow, I've never heard it put quite that way. But I love the what you said about choice, because in a lot of the work that I do, especially with the folks who are dying, one of the main goals of a death doula is to ensure that folks have the information so that they can make the choice that they want to make for their death. And sometimes we just don't know what those choices are until we're presented with them. And it's the same, I think, in work in altered states. We are presented with an alternate view or a different way of looking at things. And suddenly, like you said, we have a choice.
I couldn't have said that better. The whole aspect of dream work is about choice. It's an exercise in choice making. Are we going to choose to let 1/3 of our life, or the 2 hours that we spend in dream states every single night, be completely unconscious time? Or are we going to give a little bit of attention and a little bit of awareness to that time? And rather than it being unconscious time, this can be supraconscious time. This can be times of growth. This can be times of insight. This can be times of depth work. And so this is a habit. This is a practice of making the choice to bring conscious awareness continuously to our otherwise unconscious states. And what does that do for us? Well, like you said, when we're fully present, when we're fully conscious, we have choice in the matter. When we're unconscious, we're habitual, we're reactive. And I think, for me, that's what I want for myself, what I want for my family, for my daughter, and for everyone around me. Be here, be present, be fully conscious, be empowered, and choose the life you want to live.
Yeah. For me, this lights me up in the same way. I'm a constant learner. I believe for myself that life is about collecting experiences and getting to the ultimate depth of it that we can get to. But what would you say to somebody who kind of responds back with, that just sounds like a lot more work. Like, I have enough to do
Mm,
right now. This sounds like a lot of work. How do you tackle
totally.
that?
Yeah. So a dream work practice, I tell most students that are coming into it, prepare to carve out just a few minutes before bed, 2 or 3 minutes before bed, and 5 minutes when you wake up. Let's say 5 to 10 minutes a day is all it takes to get 2 extra hours of experience every day. If I told you I can give you 2 extra hours of experience every single day for the rest of your life, what would that mean to you? What would that be worth to you? So the return on investment of a few minutes of practice, and this is practice that isn't just about connecting to your dreams and exercising choice and intentionality. This practice honors what is probably the most important to our physical, mental, and emotional well-being, and that is our sleep hygiene. By honoring our sleep, by treating it as ceremony, by going into it with intentionality, you're going to honor your sleep, which is going to help you with all your health. It's going to give you more dreaming. It's going to be a state that is sacred to you, that you can access your inner world, that you can explore your maps of meaning. And then ultimately, that empowers you. That makes you feel better. You get better sleep. We know sleep is the epitome of all physical, mental health. You're emotionally recharged and you're doing the introspective work. So, yeah, people might say, I don't have time for another practice. Well, do you have time to do therapy? Do you have time to do ayahuasca? Do you have time to do Wim Hof? Do you have time to do any of this personal development work? Because 5 to 8 minutes a day is one of the best returns on investment for your sleep, for 2 hours of dream experiences every night, and for your own insights.
Yeah, yeah. And I have maybe something to add to that too, which is in one of my not plant but animal medicine ceremonies when I was in Peru, combo, which is, for those who don't know, a frog medicine. No frogs are harmed in this medicine work. Disclaimer, but it was probably my most profound journey, and it was maybe 7 seconds.
Mhm.
And so, because time and space are not linear, because consciousness is all around us and existent on many planes at one time, you can have a really deep shift in consciousness in no time flat. And I assume that you would say that that applies to our dream time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think very resonant with your work is the fact that dream time, and this is very steeped in Buddhist traditions and Buddhist lineages and dream yoga beliefs.
Mm.
Dream time is our practice time for the afterworld. From a Buddhist perspective, preparing for the bardo state, the state in between life and death, where you're going to either be thrown back into the karmic cycle to work on those things that you either are averting or crave still, or you're going to move on from there. And so every night you have this ability to practice consciousness, conscious awareness beyond your corporal body. And if you spend a lifetime practicing awareness that is beyond your wake-centric body, where does that take you? Well, none of us know what's coming at the great dream at the end of time here. But this type of practice, to know I am far more than just my waking conscious material self, is, I think, a very good practice. And whether we do that again in dream state, altered states, or any, all of these are different states of our consciousness. And I think it's one of the most overlooked aspects of our dominant culture right now. We don't raise our children going, how did you dream last night? We say, how did you sleep? We don't ask them about their 2 hours of sometimes emotionally traumatic, sometimes crazy experiences. Well, that is a part of their consciousness. That is part of their multiplicity. And as we start to get in contact and connection with these other aspects of our consciousness, dream, wake, trance, flow state, whatever it might be, all of these are aspects of who we are with lenses on the wider whole self that we are becoming.
I wish it was present on the video right now, but the entire back of my head is lit up with this what you just shared. That is, I'm just going to take a while to digest that. I'm going to
Beautiful.
definitely do some more work and research on that, because um for folks who are dying, what a beautiful way to help them transition with less fear, and with more consciousness about their journey.
Yeah, and if it's okay, I'd like to maybe share a personal story on that. You know, we have a longevity factor in our family, which I'm grateful for. And my grandmother, my father's mother, who is dying at age 92. In my last visit with her, I said, you know, how are you doing, Grams? And she said, you know, I'm ready to go. I said, how do you know you're ready to go? She's like, my body hurts. I'm tired. I'm ready to be done with this. I'm ready to let go. And I'm having dreams. I said, oh, tell me about the dreams. And she said, my parents are coming to visit me continuously, night after night. And I know they're calling me home. And I had shivers. I just, you know, she said, I wasn't sure if it was a dream or if they were in the room. I wasn't sure if I was alive or if I was dead at this point, but they keep coming. So I know it's almost my time. And we see this in a lot of, after hearing that from my grandma, I really started to look at what are dreams like for those who are dying, who are in hospice. And we see a lot of research that I've seen from 60 to 82 more percent of people who are having very vivid dreams as they're entering their final process. And a lot of times it's family members or friends or people who have passed on before them coming to reassure them, coming to tell them this is going to be okay, you're going to be okay. Some of that might be projection, some of that might be wish fulfillment, some of it might actually be whatever this is in preparation for our next transition. Regardless of what it is incredibly comforting, it's incredibly healing, it helps people through the process they're going through. And I think that is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I love that. It's one of the things that tells us, in end of life work, that things are coming to a close, and that the person is gaining more comfort with leaving. So, for us, it's a really beautiful indication that everything is progressing exactly as it should. And we do a lot of education and talking to people around not stifling those experiences, not saying to somebody, oh no, they weren't here, or you're not seeing that, because what does it really matter really at that point anyway, right? It's just comforting for them.
Well, I think it. I know this is to your point, but I think it does completely matter, and this is something for our children as well. You know, again, our dominant culture doesn't nurture dreams. What happens when a child has a nightmare? Parents will often come and say, "Oh, it wasn't real. Don't be afraid. It wasn't real." Well, that experience was extremely real. That child's emotions, their fear, their anxiety, their overwhelm is extremely real. And we need to honor that, whatever their emotional state is. So saying, no, that's not real, only waking life is real, really limits their worldview. This isn't a part of me. And, you know, just back to the piece on supporting transition. I mean, what better practice for all of us right now? I think we are very much, whether we're at end of life or just beginning life, I think we're entering a very big time of transition in our world as we face all of our big existential questions, as we rub up against the constraints and limits of finite growth, infinite growth in a finite world. Our world is changing faster than it's ever been. So playing with these transitions from waking consciousness to dreaming consciousness in the states in between, liminal states, is a good practice of just getting used to shifting, to transitioning. And I think that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And yes, that's exactly what I meant, is honoring those things won't impact the people who are going on and living, right? If it's a comfort to the people that are dying, or to the child that's just had a nightmare. Any of us who have had a nightmare can attest that it's very real when it's happening. And than, when you're adult, and maybe you have more lucid dreaming. So the other week I had this dream, a very lucid dream, and there were several beings in it. And now I'm realizing the irony. I'm taking my teen tonight to a drive-in movie to see The Sixth Sense, and I'm realizing the irony with this story. But I have a lot of experiences with people who have passed. But in this dream, it was very ghost-like. Yeah, I was in a room and there were a lot of beings, and they all wanted to talk to me. And I realized what was happening, and I was able to say, "All right, y'all, I can't handle this right now. Too much for my nervous system. You can't come to me like this. We have to figure out another way. I'll come back to you when I have a solution." And I was able to like transition out of the dream and leave. But that was the first time that I've been able to interact so directly like that.
That's beautiful. I mean, the fact that you were able to become aware that you could ask for what you needed in that state is really empowering. And, there are clients that I work with that come to me with PTSD dreams, that come to me with nightmares. And, part of this is working with those dreams. I think nightmares are very important for us in that the emotional volume's turned up. It's turned up for a reason. It's trying to catch our attention. It's trying to sear into our psyche some message that's coming through to us. Hey, you need to listen to this. As we work through this, as we work through these dreams, we can set intentions. Okay, before bed, I do not want to have any nightmares. If you've got messages for me, come to me in more subtle ways. I will pay attention. I will use my dream journal. I will actively listen, but I do not want to receive messages in this ways. And oftentimes, that active intentionality, just knowing that they can do that might work, often does.
Yeah. And if we can learn how to ask for what we need in our dreams, imagine how much more empowered we are in our waking life.
Well, that's the real beauty of lucid dreaming. As you start to practice this more and more, the only limit in that infinite space is your imagination. And so as you start to go, okay, I no longer need to be Kristen in this dream. Maybe I'm going to be two Kristens. Maybe I'm going to be someone else entirely. Maybe I'm going to be an elephant. Maybe I'm going to be something completely. Maybe I want to be the universe. You just keep stretching your mind into new experiences, into new ways of perceiving that have huge ripple effects in your waking state. Those experiences are real. Those ways that you've experienced that state start to alter how you look at waking life. And I think we're on the profound cusp of something very interesting as our culture starts to, one, go through psychedelic renaissance and honor the power of some of these altered states for our healing and growth. Two, as dream culture starts to be honored again in dominant culture, and we start to embrace our multitude of selves, our multitude of consciousnesses, all of this is going to open us up to new ways of looking at ourselves, new ways of looking at interaction and social life together, and hopefully as a civilization-wide species. And I'm profoundly excited. They may say I'm a dreamer, but I truly believe that we're onto some very interesting openings in those states of consciousness.
Yeah, I can feel that swell myself for sure. What a beautiful world. I want to make sure too that I circle back for a minute because the shift that you made in your waking life around moving from corporate stability, corporate nature, all of the corporate stuff to this new way of being is also really interesting. And here we talk a lot about, rewriting that life prescription, all the things that you're supposed to be, that you decide early, that society tells you that you get from your family. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about what that transition was like for you and how you made your way through those decisions.
Yeah, it's a good question. Oh man, it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I had so much fear, as much as I'd had a passion for dream work, coming out to the world and saying, hey, I'm going to be a dream coach. And the fear of judgment from my professional colleagues, my networks, these places that, probably didn't look too fondly on this type of woo-woo work, was a big hurdle for me to overcome. Interestingly, though, as I came through it and shared, those people whose judgment I feared the most became my biggest and best clients. These are CEOs and executives who came and said, oh yeah, I've had some of my best ideas from Dreamtime. I'd like to learn how to open my practice up more. And so oftentimes when we face fears like this, yeah, we find out our biggest fears are actually some of our biggest opportunities. But what I think was more profound for me from a meta level of looking at this was the fact that I decided to turn a part of my life over to dream. I decided to turn my life over to vision. Okay, what does it mean when we come back from a planned ceremony and we had a download? Okay, I'm going to integrate that and start being that way. Well, for a lot of people, that rubs them the wrong way. That beckons, the times of faith and religiosity and the dogma and all the negativity that came with that. What does it mean to turn yourself over to your higher self, your inner guide, the visions, the subconscious, the collective unconscious source, however you want to frame that again? Well, in this way, I had these dreams, I had these visions. I decided I was going to honor them. And it's one of the best things I've ever done. And students, as they start to really listen, and I encourage them, honor these dreams, do something simple. If you had red in your dream, wear something red today. If you had a friend that showed up in your dream that you haven't thought about for 10 years, send them an email and just say, hey, you were in a dream, how you doing? Often those things open things up for us, open opportunities up for us. And as we start to honor these dreams, these inner guidances, these callings again and again and again, well, we get, for me, greater and greater purpose. And as many students have found, it just sets them on their path. It feels like it brings you to your true callings in life. And holy cow, aside from, wherever it's coming from, what does it feel like when we start to live into our full potential, our true callings, our deepest selves? It's beautiful.
I was talking to a client the other day, and she was wondering how to work with her intuition more and in ways that felt easy to her, and like they could be embraced on the everyday. And so we talked a little bit about, hey, if you wake up in the morning and you take a moment to just kind of listen into, what do I need today? And perhaps the message you get is chocolate chip cookies for breakfast. Then you have chocolate chip cookies for breakfast. And you see then what the next thing that comes in, and the next thing that comes in, and the next thing comes in. And you start saying yes, little by little by little. And whether it's, wearing red because you saw it in your dream, or chocolate chip cookies for breakfast, it kind of signals to your central nervous system and to your intuition both that, hey, it's safe to go down this path. I trust you. Please bring me more of this. And it can have, like you said, a really profound effect on growing those senses for us.
I couldn't agree more. I think, there's a real nice side benefit to which you're speaking to with the dream practice. And that's one, starting your day, just giving yourself a couple minutes to lie in bed, to do introspection, to do self-reflection, to tune into, how do I feel right now? How am I emotionally? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling anxious? Do I just have a happy dream? Is there fear? Just tune in and get in connection with your emotions. The other thing is, it's starting your day with a form of play. Okay,
Mm.
yes, dreams can be incredibly insightful. They can be precognitive, they can be healing, they can be all these deep, heavy things. And they're also bizarre and strange and hilarious and fun. And just going, whoa, like, okay, I'm going to write that down. What was that? What could that possibly mean? I'm just going to, marinate on that for the day. It's a form of play. It's a form of exploration. And that sets the tone for your day. Okay, I've just done a little bit of play. I'm going to be a little bit more playful as I go in. And there's something incredibly important, and a lot of Western psychology knows this. When we play, we're in a bubble of safety. We feel secure. We're willing to try new things, to risk, to explore. There's a bit of room for safety. And so when we start our day like this, I'm going to play. I'm going to be comfortable with myself. Like you said, that brings you in deeper connection with your intuition, with your inner guide, with yourself. And that's a beautiful tone to set for your day.
Wow, I had no idea that psychology supported those thoughts as well, but that's a really good excuse to play more. So
Mhm.
between play and rest, I'm really liking what's happening here.
I mean, going back to the big existential issues of our day, like, what more do we want than super serious, super hard political environment? Let's be a playful species. Let's be an explorative species. Let's have fun. And I think that's a beautiful vision for humanity.
Yeah, so do I. More of that.
Mhm.
You hit on something earlier that was really interesting too. this idea of holding a couple things at the same time, the expectations and the maybe the thinking that we have around for instance, your corporate life, what people might think if you leave it and if you go on to do this woo woo work. And then that desire that for me, it's like a guttural pull, physical pull toward something that you know is the right path for you. And
Mm.
being able to look at both and saying, I'm going to go toward this pull. It doesn't make sense in this human world in the way that it might look on paper, but I don't care because this is what I'm doing. And to be able to have that fear and to trust yourself anyway, that's pretty magical.
Yeah, I think there's so many good points there. We both have children here. We've discussed that. And education is a big, important aspect, whether I'm educating them with dream work, but ultimately I'm asking myself, what do I want for my daughter? How does
Mm.
she want to be brought up? And I always come back to the same thing. I want her to be happy. I want her to live a life of purpose of her choosing. I want that to be meaningful to her. And so, how we nurture that rather than how we instill that or design that into them for the jobs that they might have, how we bring about whatever is going to be their life passion is really, really important here. And so, I think when we start to think about, okay, what are these types of aspects of learning that they can grow into? Ultimately, we want to get to what wants to be expressed through them. And I heard this great quote the other day: creativity is but corporal bodily utterances. Okay,
Mm.
well, these are your dreams as well. Every night you've got these murmurations, these utterances coming deep from in your psyche that are yearning to be expressed, that are yearning to be have the light of awareness shone on them. Okay, well, if we get used to this habit of looking at what yearns to be expressed through us, then we're going to start getting better during our waking lives as well as what truly wants to be expressed through me. What is my unique life's purpose? What can I bring to the world? And again, I think it just helps us build those creativity chops.
Oh my gosh, that makes me want to go to sleep right now. Um, yeah. In the last two, what's occurring to me right here is in the last two podcasts that I've recorded, the same thing has been said, which is what what do I want my children's experience to be? What do I want? How do I want them to know that they can express themselves and exist in this world? Which means this must be a pretty important message for everybody right now. And the other piece of that was something that I heard from someone a while ago, which is what thinking now about what kind of ancestor I want to be, or what
Mm,
kind of ancestor you want to be. Kind of two
yeah,
halves of the same coin there.
yeah, I love that. Well, I think the kids' education piece is a piece that's common throughout time. How do we do better than we did before? What didn't I like? What didn't work for me? Where am I traumatized from my my upbringing? How can I try and do better? And of course, we're going to do the best we can. We're going to be as compassionate and conscious as we can, and we're still going to traumatize our children. We got to have compassion for ourselves in that. But this other piece, how do we bring them up, and how do we be good ancestors? What do we want to be our lineage teachings to be? Ultimately, I think that, again, bringing through the unique expression of our child, anything we can do to let that grow and come out is a beautiful way to do that. Wake, dream, plant medicine, meditation, Wim Hof, whatever it might be. What wants to come through them, and how can we create contexts, environments, cultures, economies, all of this that nurture that? I think that's really important. I'm biasedly heavily influenced by Zach Stein's work and his kind of new take on education. And I think any education that ultimately nurtures our soul space, nurtures what wants to come through, is going to be the best we can possibly do.
Mm, I love that. It seems like a really beautiful place to end, actually.
Thank you for this,
Wow.
Kristen. These are great questions, and this is a great conversation. I think the work that you're doing is incredibly important, and it's helping people in these transitions in between states, and what are we beyond our corporal awareness. And so it's very resonant, and I thank you for your work.
Oh, well, ditto for you as well. Grateful for you being out in the world and doing what you do and broadening our perspective about these spaces that are too often kind of negated, um, and left to unconsciousness, really.
Mhm. Let's
Thank
bring
you.
let's bring maximum conscious awareness that we can to the world.
I'm on that. I'm on that for sure. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for being here.
Thank you, Kristen. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, you know what? Before we go, tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, Cordell Jacks, CORDELLJACKS.com. And that's where my courses are. I do dream interpretation work as well for anyone just interested in dabbling what a dream practice might look like. Find me on my website or on Facebook, Cordell Jacks Dream Coach. I offer a free 7-day dream recall challenge where every day I send a video to you, give you some tips and techniques, and almost 100% of my people who go through this 7-day dream recall challenge are astonished by how quickly their dreams are coming back to them and the depth of experience that they're starting to have. And again, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So that, and finally Instagram, Cordell.Jacks. So thank you for sharing that.
Awesome. Everybody, go check them out right now.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kristen.